So in Washington, anybody who's spent any amount of time there knows how respected Colin Powell was, and across the aisle, despite what is now a very, very deep political divide. And remarkably, we heard the Secretary of Defense today call Powell one of the greatest leaders we have ever witnessed. Is that merited?
Well, I think it is. You have to look back at where the United States was in 1962 when he first entered the Army. And, there were a couple things. First off, he, as an African-American, he entered the U.S. Army when the country still had segregation. Fortunately, the Army has always been, at the vanguard of integration in the United States. And to rise to the top levels of that, even if his accomplishments were confined to that, he'd still be an impressive and an important figure in American history. But he also was seen as one of the key thinkers in formulating post-Vietnam War strategy for the United States. The so-called Powell Doctrine is viewed as the touch mark that U.S. policy goes well overseas when we conform to it and goes astray when we stray from it.
Very true.
I think he'll be viewed as a key thinker.
And of course, he was burned very much, and many have blamed him in the lead up to the U.S.'s involvement in Iraq in 2003, where he went before the UN and made that case. Of course, he said that it was based on real intelligence that he got from the U.S. intelligence community, but he knew that that was always going to be, as he put it, a blot on his record.
That's exactly right. I mean, look, many of the claims made, it's important, to go back and do a forensic analysis. People have been using intemperate language on the Twitter sphere, as they always do. But
of course.
His views of the Iraqi weapons of mass destruction threat were shared by Bill Clinton. This was consistent with U.S. administrations. It's just that on the one key finding, which was stockpiles of weapons of mass destruction, that information proved to be wrong. And it proved to be wrong because Saddam Hussein was putting it out to try to deter an Iranian attack. But other than that, everybody got that wrong.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, David. And we know now, of course, so much has been done in retrospect on that issue. And there were so many problems with the intelligence itself. There was disagreement within the intelligence community. There were lawmakers, too, who made the case for war who didn't even read the fullness of the intelligence that they had access to. So after all of this, and in light of Colin Powell's legacy, has U.S. leadership learned from mistakes around Iraq?
Well, we learn most from our mistakes. I'm of that view of human nature. So I think we have. I think there's a need to be skeptical. But, the problem is when you look at this after the fact, you say, oh my gosh, well, there were clear warning signs which were disavowed. There is always ambiguity in intelligence. And when you look at it after the fact, the issue is not finding the right answer. The issue is finding the right answer from the other 100 credible answers. It's finding one needle in a pile of needles, not in a haystack. We've learned from that, but there will be other mistakes. That's just the nature of intelligence. And to look at the forensic after the facts and expect that you can, thus insulate yourself against making mistakes, that really reflects a sophomoric view of the true nature of intelligence, and it's not the view that policymakers usually come around to because they know better.
Yeah, and there's interpretation involved as well, and consensus, and of course, politics. David, it's a pleasure to have you.